She sits in the courtroom, mindlessly sweeping her hair back with her hands. She appears shy, yet possesses a strange sense of confidence. Her attorneys assured her that she could dodge serious jail time. They portrayed her as a victim, a scared teenager who acted in self-defense. They argued that she defended herself against an aggressive former friend. Halia Culbertson was portrayed as the aggressor. The defense strategy seemed effective. Her legal team showcased a video that captured her retreating, taking 45 steps back. They contended that she had no other option. But then the text messages emerged, turning everything upside down.
Halia, what you about to do, bro? Where's she at, bro? Where's she at, bro? He's scared, bro. Hey, get off my sister, bro. Get off my sister. Hey, if you touch my sister again, I'm gonna have to put my phone down, bro. Halia, country to get it over with, bro. Country to get it over with, Halia. Yeah, country, Halia. Country, Halia.
What you are about to witness is the moment the prosecutors solidified their case. This is when the evidence began to overshadow the claims of self-defense, leading to not just months, but years of imprisonment for Halia Culbertson. She succumbed to a single stab wound to her neck on March 27, 2023. And the evidence of what truly transpired outside that Columbus smoke shop was all right there. This is the story of two former best friends, whose conflict escalated into deadly violence, where one claimed she was merely defending herself. If you're hearing this story for the first time, prepare yourself, because the events that unfolded at 161 Carry Out on that spring evening will challenge your understanding. You may think you know about teenage violence, self-defense laws, and how a single insult can spark a homicide. She lived a life similar to any typical suburban teenager in Westerville, Ohio, attending college, working part-time, hanging out with friends. Brianna Barasini thought that her good grades and clean record made her immune to trouble. When she entered 161 Carry Out that March evening, she had a knife from work tucked in her pocket. By the time she left, a 17-year-old girl would be dying in a parking lot, and Brianna found herself facing murder charges. Halia Culbertson embodied everything one would expect from a 17-year-old with aspirations. Outgoing, social, adored by all who knew her. She was raised in Northeast Columbus, surrounded by a loving and supportive family. Her grandparents, Vicky Cash Dollar and Harley Langley, played a crucial role in her upbringing and later led efforts to commemorate her. She had a bright and open spirit, someone who cherished life deeply and easily made friends. Everyone she encountered seemed to become her new best friend. There was an innate warmth about her, a remarkable ability to make others feel appreciated and acknowledged. Yet, Halia had a complicated history with Brianna. They had once been inseparable best friends, the kind of teenage bond that feels everlasting until reality strikes. By March 2023, that friendship had soured into something harmful. To understand how Brianna Barasini became a killer, we must revisit the moment their friendship began to unravel. As Brianna communicated to the police, their friendship fell apart around September or October 2022.
Halia used to be a really good friend of mine, and then I found out a lot that she's just a really bad person, so I stopped being friends with her, and my friends stopped talking to her. And then after that, she pretty much just went crazy, like saying she was going to kill us and slash his tires and do all these things, and like she does to most people.
Whether these threats were genuine, exaggerated, or just perceived, they had taken root in Brianna's mind, festering into an authentic fear and resentment against Halia Culbertson. The night of March 26, 2023, started like any other. It was a Sunday evening, and around 8:45 p.m., a friend picked her up from her Westerville home. They spent several hours together, driving around, engaging in typical teenage activities, chatting, jamming to music, and passing the time. Throughout the night, Brianna was on the phone with her brother. He was elsewhere in his truck, but they stayed connected, maintaining the protective sibling bond that ensured her safety. Around 11:30 p.m., Brianna and her friend decided to grab some drinks specifically non-alcoholic ones from a convenience store. Their target was 161 Carryout, a smoke shop and convenience store situated on Emporium Square in northeast Columbus. Brianna would later tell authorities, "We always go there. That's just our go-to for years." It was a familiar stop at a regular hangout. Brianna had no reason to anticipate trouble, but what she didn't realize was that Halia Culbertson and her friends were already inside. Brianna stepped into 161 Carryout around 11:45 p.m. with her friend. She remained on the phone with her brother, casually browsing the store and picking up drinks. It was around 11:45 p.m. when she was with her friend. She remained on the phone with her brother, casually browsing the store and picking up drinks. The store was bustling with several other customers, including a group Brianna instantly recognized, and not in a positive light. In Brianna's later police interview, she recounted hearing voices. "I hear two girls' voices, the ones who have it out for me. It was Halia Culbertson and her gang." What unfolded next inside the store would be the ignition point for everything that followed. Halia's brother was present during these events, and later relayed to the police what happened at that crucial moment.
Yeah, in the smoke shop right there.
Okay.
It just
And
happened to come in, and they started going at it in the store, and Bree called Halia a cokehead.
Okay.
Halia's a sober, like she's a recovering addict. So she took that into great offense. You know, I don't know if you've met any recovering addicts, but like me personally, I'm one.
Who was the addict? I'm sorry.
Halia. Halia was an
okay.
addict. So, and she called Halia out on being
A cokehead.
yeah. So like Halia got mad, and Halia was waiting outside, and they were supposed to just fight. It was supposed to just be a fight. Like I was there. I was supposed to be like in between it. I didn't even see a knife get pulled.
One word, one insult, cokehead. For Halia, who was in recovery and striving to stay sober, that insult was more than just hurtful. It felt catastrophic to be publicly called out for her past struggles. Being confronted by someone who had once been her closest friend, and who knew her background all too well, struck a deep chord. The verbal clash inside the store escalated rapidly. While the exact words exchanged aren't fully recorded, it was evident that the situation was on the verge of turning physical. The store employee, sensing the threat, stepped in. He asked Halia and her friends to leave, trying to de-escalate the situation before it spiraled out of control. However, Halia didn't leave. She took her stand outside the store, specifically waiting for Brianna to come out. She was prepared for a confrontation. In the world of teenage social interactions, walking away would be seen as a sign of weakness. Halia was determined to hold her ground at 11:48 p.m. and 24 seconds. Brianna Barozzini stepped out of 161 Carryout. The surveillance footage captured every moment. She held drinks in her hands, not weapons, not fists, just refreshments. Her friend walked next to her as they headed straight for their car, but Halia was waiting. As soon as Brianna stepped out, Halia stormed forward, yelling and closing the distance aggressively. Brianna started retreating from Halia, repeatedly insisting she did not wish to fight and urging her to step back. Halia kept advancing towards Brianna while her friend Barry yelled from behind, egging her on to continue the fight as he recorded the unfolding events.
Halia, country, get it over with, bro. Country, get it over with, Halia. Yeah, country ass, Halia. Country ass, Halia. Country ass, Halia. Country ass, Halia. Her up. What's up? You better get your girl before she get up even more.
Yet, Halia's brother insisted he hadn't seen Brianna pull a knife from her pocket earlier to try and distance Halia. Meanwhile, the video continued rolling, capturing Halia persistently pushing and hitting Brianna, seemingly unfazed, even after noticing the knife. At one point, one of Brianna's friends attempted to intervene, desperately trying to separate them, but Halia's male friend swiftly warned him against stepping in. Then, in a single heart-stopping moment, everything changed. Brianna swung the knife, a sudden frantic motion that would claim one life and leave two families forever changed. What transpired next unfolded in a haze. The blade struck Halia in the upper chest, just below her collarbone, slicing her neck and severing crucial blood vessels, Within moments, the confrontation that had begun with insults and rage morphed into an irrevocable tragedy. To make matters even more tragic, Halia initially didn't realize she had been stabbed. Amidst the chaos and adrenaline rush, both girls continued to grapple, unaware of the severe nature of what had just occurred. After Brianna swung the knife, Halia continued to fight back, pulling Brianna's hair as blood started to flow. Brianna thought she might be the one who was hurt, as onlookers shouted and laughed, confused about what had just happened. During their struggle, the knife tumbled to the ground. Eventually, the two girls separated. Brianna and her friend moved toward their car, while Halia made her way back to the silver Jeep where her friends awaited. Witnesses observed her getting into the Jeep, ready to drive away, when one of her friends noticed blood seeping from her chest. Panic swept through, as they realized Halia was coughing up blood and struggling to breathe. Among the shocked bystanders was Halia's brother. He rushed to her side, desperately trying to staunch the bleeding while others called for help. Later, in his statement to the police, he revealed that he had previously lost someone dear to him in the exact same manner. Reliving that pain while cradling his dying sister was nearly unbearable for him.
We didn't know she was bleeding out. She crunched Bree in the face. Bree was on the ground and she walked away. Halia walked away, got in the Jeep ready to drive.
Right.
And she was sitting there and comes over to me and goes, she's spitting blood out of her chest. And I come over and I just see right in this area, left side of her chest, shooting blood. My first reaction is take my shirt off, put it on top, put pressure on it. I've had my brothers die in my arms because they got shot, and you know what I'm saying? I didn't put pressure fast enough. So
That's rough. That's rough, brother. That's rough.
Man, just please save my sister, bro.
Okay.
His voice cracked as he recounted the trauma, but despite his immediate efforts and knowledge, his frantic attempts to save her were futile, as the wound was too grave. At 11:48 p.m., a 911 call reported that a teenage girl had been stabbed outside 161 Carry Out on Emporium Square. His voice cracked as he recounted the trauma, yet despite his quick actions and knowledge, and his desperate attempts to save her, the injury was far too serious. At 11:48 p.m., a 911 call was made, reporting that a teenage girl had been stabbed outside 161 Carry Out on Emporium Square. Columbus police officers arrived within moments to a scene filled with chaos. Friends were screaming and crying as paramedics worked desperately to stabilize Halia and get her ready for transport. The body camera footage from those initial moments captured the confusion and urgency as officers attempted to keep control while allowing paramedics space to operate. Halia's sister and friends were beside themselves, pleading to reach her, struggling to grasp what was taking place. Officers gently but firmly held them back as medical personnel battled to save her. Paramedics hurried Halia Culbertson to Ohio Health Riverside Medical Center, where trauma surgeons tirelessly worked to revive her. While doctors fought for her life, police officers at the scene were already piecing together what had transpired and identifying the individual responsible for the stabbing. The suspect, Brianna Barazzini, was quickly identified since several witnesses knew both girls personally. One young woman with complex connections to both families readily provided officers with Brianna's complete name and home address in Westerville. The most vital piece of evidence came from the phone of the man who recorded the incident. When officers reviewed the recording, they instantly recognized its significance and set the phone to airplane mode to preserve the footage and eliminate any chance of tampering. With Brianna identified, her address confirmed, and clear video evidence secured, Columbus police acted swiftly to make an arrest. Officers traveled to Westerville, a tranquil suburban area where Brianna resided with her mother and stepfather. Upon arrival, they discovered Brianna at home. Brianna had already showered and changed her clothes, and the outfit she wore during the altercation was found in the washing machine, already in the process of being washed. Brianna did not resist when the police came for her. She remained calm and quiet. They handcuffed her and transported her downtown to police headquarters. There, She waited alone in an interrogation room for hours before detectives were ready to talk with her. Meanwhile, at the hospital, at 12 a.m. on March 27, 2017, 17-year-old Holly Elaine Culbertson was pronounced dead. While Brianna lingered in the interrogation room with the detective, she was informed of Halia's death. The news struck her hard because she hadn't anticipated that the injuries would prove fatal. What started as a fight had transformed into something far more serious. In that moment, Brianna was officially arrested for murder.
Just so that you know, Halia was taken to the hospital and she died. She didn't survive her injuries. So with all the people that we interviewed and the video that we recovered, we're charging you with murder.
No sort of self-defense or anything?
Essentially, it'll be up to the prosecutor's office. We'll present the case to them, and then if they decided that they want us to present to the grand jury, we'll present to the grand jury. If you get indicted for it, then it'll go to trial, it'll go to court, and then you'll be able to present a self-defense claim at that point.
I'm not going home?
No, you're going to jail, because we're charging you with the murder.
On March 27, 2023, Brianna Berrezzini was formally charged with the murder of 17-year-old Halia Culbertson. In Ohio, a murder conviction comes with a potential sentence of life imprisonment, with the possibility of parole only after serving at least 15 years. The following day, March 28, Brianna appeared in Franklin County Municipal Court for her arraignment. Her attorney, Robert Crappinch, made it clear that the defense would focus on self-defense, suggesting that the circumstances surrounding the incident were more intricate than they initially seemed. Although he withheld specifics, Crappinch depicted Brianna as a young woman caught in a tragic situation rather than a cold-blooded murderer. He cited her background as a reflection of her character. She had no previous criminal record, had graduated from high school, and was enrolled at Columbus State Community College. Crappinch contended that these attributes did not mark her as a violent individual, but as someone whose life had taken a devastating turn. The judge, acknowledging the severity of the charge, set Brianna's bond at $750,000. Despite the high figure, her family managed to secure her release that very day. She walked out of jail under strict conditions. No contact with Halia's family or friends, no visits to the crime scene, no weapons, and no threats or acts of violence. Months turned into a year as hearings were postponed and evidence was reviewed. For Halia's family, each day only deepened their suffering. The girl who had taken their daughter's life was free and carrying on with her life, while Halia lay in a grave. What Brianna had not initially disclosed to the police was that she had sent her own threatening messages about Halia roughly 1 week before their tragic encounter. "I'd sooner slice Culbertson's if she comes near me again, and I'll ensure that my entire family knows if she makes another attempt to come to our house." The texts suggested that Brianna had been contemplating and issuing threats. Violence directed at Halia occurred at least 1 week before the altercation, as investigators uncovered these communications. The perspective on the case began to evolve. What initially seemed like a tragic act of self-defense now appeared much more intentional. In the ensuing months, both parties readied themselves for what was anticipated to be a highly public trial. The prosecution constructed its argument around 3 primary assertions. First, they argued that Brianna had employed excessive force. Halia had been unarmed, her actions limited to slapping and pushing, which did not warrant a lethal response. Second, they pointed to Brianna's actions, following the stabbing, fleeing the scene, showering, washing her clothing, and concealing the knife. Third, they intended to introduce text messages sent by Brianna 1 week prior to the incident, in which she threatened Halia. To the prosecution, these messages indicated premeditation and intent. Meanwhile, the defense presented robust evidence of their own. They had video footage that showed Halia waiting outside the store and instigating the brawl. The same footage displayed Brianna retreating more than 40 steps. By their estimate, both before and after she drew the knife. Witnesses verified that Halia had thrown the first punch and continued to advance even after seeing the weapon. The defense also referenced Ohio's Stand Your Ground law, which permits individuals to defend themselves without retreating if they are in a lawful location. They portrayed Brianna as a terrified young woman acting out of panic, not malice. As the trial set for June 2024 drew closer, both sides ramped up preparations. But the defense made a strategic move that would alter everything. They filed a motion requesting Judge Mark Serrett to dismiss the threatening text messages Brianna had sent to Halia the week before. They contended that the messages would bias the jury unfairly, arguing that angry comments made days prior had no relevance to the events during the confrontation. The prosecution strongly opposed this, claiming that the messages were critical for understanding Brianna's mindset and intentions. On June 10, 2024, as the jury selection commenced, Judge Serrett ruled that the text messages would be admissible as evidence. He warned Brianna and her attorney that the messages would not favor their case. This ruling was a significant setback for the defense. It meant jurors would witness Brianna's own words threatening harm to Halia just days before the stabbing, evidence that could overshadow even the most persuasive video of her retreat. Confronted with this challenge, attorney Robert Crapping faced a tough decision: go to trial with this highly damaging evidence, or negotiate a plea deal that would avoid the risk of a life sentence, but ensure some prison time. That very afternoon, after learning of the judge's decision, Brianna's legal team made their choice. They accepted a plea deal rather than court proceedings, dominated by the text messages. Under the agreement, the prosecution dropped the murder charge in exchange for Brianna's guilty plea to involuntary manslaughter, a lesser offense that carries a maximum sentence of 3 years. Under Ohio law, involuntary manslaughter involves causing another person's death through reckless behavior or during a sudden emotional eruption without the intent to kill. By pleading guilty, Brianna acknowledged her responsibility for Halia's death, but insisted it was not premeditated, a confrontation that got out of hand rather than a calculated act of murder. That day, Brianna appeared before Judge Serrett and officially entered her guilty plea, bringing the lengthy and distressing case one step closer to resolution.
Stand up for me, please. So I have in the computer a 3-page entry of guilty plea form. The document looks like you signed it and your lawyer signed it. Did you sign it?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. In signing it, you're telling me you want to admit to a felony 3 crime called involuntary manslaughter. When you plead guilty, it is a complete admission. You're going to be convicted today and you're going to be sentenced on July the 11th. It'll be on your record. It's a non-expungible offense. It carries up to 3 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. Do you understand the nature of the charge to which you're pleading guilty and what the maximum penalties are?
Yes, Your Honor.
With that plea, the murder trial came to an end before it even started. Brianna Barazzini admitted guilt to involuntary manslaughter in connection to Halia Culbertson's death. For Halia's family, the plea deal was heartbreaking. They had steeled themselves for a trial that would uncover every aspect of what transpired, one where Brianna would face the full weight of a murder charge, and in their opinion, true justice would be achieved. Instead, they ended up with a plea deal that capped her punishment at a maximum of 3 years behind bars. Halia's grandfather, Harley Langley, expressed the family's discontent. He stated that the sentence felt far too lenient for a life that had been taken. Her grandmother, Vicky Cash Dollar, was even more devastated, declaring there could be no justice when their granddaughter would never return home again. From a legal perspective, however, the plea agreement was considered a sensible resolution for both parties. For the prosecutors, it ensured a conviction and guaranteed that Brianna would serve time, avoiding the unpredictability of a jury, potentially accepting her self-defense claim. On July 11, 2024, the day of the sentencing, emotions ran high in the courtroom. The atmosphere was charged. The judge made sure the courtroom was orderly before proceeding with the sentencing. Just before the verdict was announced, Assistant Prosecutor Trenton Grovey addressed the court firmly, requesting the maximum 3-year sentence. He pointed out that the evidence indicated some elements of self-defense, like Halia being confrontational, challenging Brianna to a fight, waiting outside for her, and striking first. However, Grovey emphasized that none of this justified Brianna's actions, stating that her choice to wield a knife escalated a confrontation into a tragedy.
She engaged. She slapped Brianna Berrezzini in the face. Your Honor, all of that is fact. It is reasonable that those actions would anger Brianna Berrezzini. However, none of those actions justify Brianna Berrezzini taking a knife and plunging it into Halia's clavicle. Rather, that is an act of unjustifiable rage. A stabbing is a disproportionate response to a slap. Your Honor, today this court has the responsibility of deciding the appropriate sentence for Ms. Berrezzini.
The prosecution contended that while Halia's behavior was aggressive, Brianna's decision to use a knife transformed a simple altercation into a disaster. They urged the court to impose the maximum sentence, underscoring that a young life was lost due to one reckless choice. However, the defense attorney, Robert Crapins, offered a markedly different viewpoint on the events of that night. He requested the court to review the surveillance footage again, this time with his commentary, highlighting specific details.
Mr. Berridge, who was a friend of Ms. Culbertson's, had the opportunity and took that opportunity to video Ms. Culbertson as Ms. Culbertson was waiting for Brianna to come out of the store. There's a significant period of time when Ms. Culbertson is waiting. Ms. Brianna comes out with drinks in her hand. There is a glass door, but there's posters or pictures or whatever covering that. I think it disputes the fact that this was a mutual combat. Let's get into a fist fight, and then fist fight got out of hand. And at that time, Brianna had pulled a knife. In watching and reviewing the video that was played about the actual events a little while ago, and I had mentioned in the sentencing memorandum, I had counted no less than 30 steps that my client took backwards. She pulled a knife from her pocket and took 15 more steps backwards away from Ms. Culbertson. She didn't want to engage at all. This was more an assault than a mutual fistfight. And at the time, as Mr. Barrett said, she's afraid. She was in fear, and she was. When her friend tried to jump in and help, Mr. Barrett threatened him.
The defense attorney's argument was straightforward. He insisted that Brianna Berrezzini was not the aggressor, but rather the victim of an attack, compelled to defend herself only after attempting to avoid confrontation. He implored the court to show leniency and recommend a sentence below the maximum, stressing that Brianna had already suffered greatly and would bear the burden of taking a life indefinitely. While he acknowledged that some prison time was warranted, he argued that a maximum sentence wouldn't adequately capture the full intricacy of the situation. During the emotionally charged victim impact statements, Brianna Berrezzini remained at the defense table, largely devoid of expression. Whether this signified emotional numbness, a conscious effort to maintain her calm in court, genuine remorse she struggled to convey, or something else entirely, only Brianna could say. Yet, her expressionless demeanor, while Halia's family wept and shared their pain, was noted by numerous onlookers and would be remarked upon subsequently.
I never once thought I would be here today with these charges. I also have never been one to start a fight. I'm always the person to back away from confrontation. Not a day goes by that this incident hasn't been on my mind. I understand and feel for the victim's family, as I know the harm I have caused them is indescribable. I also feel for my own family, as the situation has caused them a lot of pain. I can understand and appreciate the harm that I have caused now. I will be living with this guilt the rest of my life. I took a life, and I understand the victim's family will suffer for the rest of their lives.
This was a brief but seemingly genuine expression of regret. However, for Halia's family, no words could suffice. No expression of remorse could bring Halia back or alleviate their suffering, as the weight of those emotions loomed over the courtroom. All gaze shifted towards the judge's bench, eagerly anticipating the judge's ruling. The courtroom fell into silence as Judge Mark Serrett prepared to announce his final decision, the climax of a profoundly emotional and tragic case that had weighed heavily on everyone involved. He acknowledged that despite the mitigating factors and that Brianna Berrezzini was technically eligible for probation, he would not grant it. Then came the official sentencing.
I'm going to give you a 3-year prison sentence, 3 days jail credit. You are going to have the ability for early release, and I will consider that at the appropriate time.
With those words, the courtroom collectively exhaled in a mix of relief and sorrow. For some, it represented justice served. For others, it felt far too lenient for a life lost. Judge Sarah concluded by advising Brianna to behave appropriately in prison and take accountability for her rehabilitation, reminding her that her future would hinge on the choices she made going forward.